Thank you, Bala, ADI, Pune Design Festival, for inviting us to speak. This is one of those beautiful moments when you get to speak in front of people who've taught you and who continue to teach you, so thank you so much. My name is Anusha Yadav. I live in Bombay, and I do several things. Some of them make me money, some of them don't. Most of the time, they don't. But I do a lot of things because I think I like to be, I'm in love with the idea of being in love, and I like what I do. And I think it really excites me, it inspires me, and if I get good ideas, I think it's one of my most exciting days. I think it really puts me in a good mood. It's like eating beef. So this is a picture. I'm gonna tell you a story about my life, which is not that it's not very long life. It's as far right until now, but this is a picture of my father and I in 1976 in London, and this is one of the first pictures I know that he took of us together. This was actually done with a remote camera. He was an amateur photographer, and he photographed all of London. In fact, most of the slides that when we started, when he passed away, we looked at all the slides, and most of them were actually just clouds. So he would take photographs of clouds in planes, and we had to throw them away. When my parents moved back to India in 1979 or early 1980, and I moved to Jaipur, and this is what my life was about. I was in a family that had photographs everywhere. My neighbors were nice Marwari people who cooked great food. And this was in their homes. I went to a girls' school, which was run by Maharani Gayatri Devi, so there were pictures of her all over the place. So for me, I found great relief in finding time traveling with these pictures and looking at these pictures everywhere all the time and imagining myself in these times, including asking people questions that what do they do? Who are these people? And they would tell me great stories about all of them. This is something this is just an indication of my life. I was put to learn how to sing. I used to sing professionally. We were taught folk dances, so I danced professionally. And then after that, when I grew up, my mother said I was terrible at academics. So my mother and my aunt thought I was going to be a useless person. So they sent me to beauty parlor school, where I learned how to thread your eyebrows. I also was sent to do shorthand, learn typing, so I could become a good secretary. And today I can maybe thread your eyebrow and take a photograph with the other hand. But so this was sort of what the ambition of the town was. At that time, we thought we had limited opportunities, and especially as women and from Jaipur, it was not something that was, NID had not occurred to me at all. We had not even heard about it until a family friend mentioned it. At NID, I drew, for the first 2 weeks. In fact, I asked the other day, Pillai, how much time did we take drawing lines? 2 weeks, because I had no idea why I was doing this and why I was doing this. I should have gone back to threading somebody's eyebrow. At least it has curves. And, so it was just strange. And I must confess, I was one of those students to whom NID education, I couldn't put it together. I didn't know what I was doing and why I was doing it. It was not something that had a goal. So it was just learning the craft, and you went on, continue doing it. But thank you, Mahendra Bhai. You really opened up my brain to typography and fussing over curves. That was good. And Ranjan, thank you so much, because you guys opened up our brains a little. This was our life at NID. It was fun, it was party, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, but it was a great place to learn a certain kind of craft. What I did realize when I went up ahead into a professional life was I thought that I had not been taught how to think in ideas. And that is something that I got inspired by with my family. Part of my family were into the photography business. They were also in advertising. And I would go back from NID vacations and hear them fight like crazy over a comma. Literally, there were serious fights over the comma in the wrong place, or up to actually two separate words. They're not one word. Fussing over the English, fussing over the colors. And it was something that really inspired me, because I wanted to be those people. I wanted to fight over the right thing and the right blue and the right red. And so I got into advertising. And these are some of the few campaigns we did, or print ads we did, because I loved working with the print medium, and I liked working with images and making simple ideas because of photographs. And so this was one. This is the Alto campaign that I worked on, and it actually was my ticket as a transfer to Bombay. Once we launched the campaign, it was one of the highest selling cars after the Maruti 800. This is another campaign that we worked on. And I liked the idea of twisting things around and big ideas and, playing with words and having fun with finding ideas from the outside world. Human insights became a big thing, and that was a big learning in advertising, was to understand human insight, understand human behavior across classes, across economics, across all kinds of things. And I think India is one of the hardest countries to create advertising for, because there are too many sensitivities, too many languages, too many different culture, parallels that we don't know how to negotiate, but we actually in India can. This is also one of the ads. This was actually done during just at the Iraq War. And this was a photograph that really, I saw the photograph and I knew we could use it for something. And then in 2000, I moved to working with more serious work. And it was working with Contact Press Images in New York and organizing a show for them in Delhi right after the 9/11 happened, that we organized a whole show from 1974 to 2001, representing some of the most amazing photographers from all over the world. There was Anna Brisky, there was Annie Leibovitz, there was Frank Fournier. It was all kinds of great photographers whose work I started seeing a lot of documentary work, which started to inspire me. So far, I had only been working with photographers' pictures, but not with. I had not started taking pictures on my own. I had no interest in doing that. I was more interested in the print, the medium, and it was something, and smelling the ink in the press, and it was something that I really enjoyed, and I till today enjoy that. These are some of the books we designed using other people's photographs. This is actually one of my first photographs taken at work in my office. I was working in Low in Bombay, and this is at 3 o'clock in the morning. And this is also some party in Goa, office parties. So I started photographing a lot of my life around me, and I enjoyed the process because I figured that I had an opinion, that I didn't need to follow some other people's footsteps. I could actually have my own grammar, develop my own work, and started looking at things that I was interested in, and that was perfectly fine. And I also was very aware when later on picking up photography, that it was not going to be something that will make me money at all. It was going to be something that I got into for the craft, and because I wanted to write along with my work, because I like art that comes with the context, and that's something that doesn't come with the context is now long gone. This is one of my first assignments that I got. It was a picture actually of Rakhi Sawant. At that time, nobody had seen her in this mode, because we'd all seen her in somebody who's in our face and screaming and, flamboyant in her personality, but this was one of her quiet moments. I started photographing some Bollywood celebrities, but as a very personalized opinion, again, this was not going to make me any money. But I did have some access, so I started photographing the way I think they should be photographed, in available light, in natural light, at their homes, hanging around with friends, hanging on the set. And these are not something that was taken from afar. I have spoken with these people, I've spent time with them, and I had to find something common with all of them to actually, this is something that you learn in advertising. You want to know somebody, you have to find a relationship with that you can form with them, including in photography, that if you want to take a good portrait, you have to fall in love with those people, even if it's for an hour. This is a series I photographed after my singing days. Out of curiosity to see how children were performing in competitions in Bombay, and how they would come and things that they're very different now. They were all dressing up, checking themselves out in the mirror, combing their hair, performing for the camera. This is another series. This is a recent series called Women in Their Homes. And I write along with a lot of work I do. I like to also, my work to be personal. It has to come from a personal space, or it has to come from a very deep curiosity about something. This is a fantastic series which was a big learning experience. This is an assignment that I got to photograph different nationalities living in a city, and it was a beautiful show that was done later on in Salzburg. And it was a commission, so there were 2 photographers commissioned, each one photographing around 70 people each. And we did this assignment in 1 month. And this is what happens when you ask, and all 3 of them, there are conversations going on while I'm talking to them, while I'm hanging out with them, you're having drinks with them, eating with them, and things can come up. A lot of people wanted to be photographed in a famous garden in Salzburg because that's the only place they thought that was pretty, until the lady in the middle, actually, in a conversation, she said she wanted to be photographed in the garden. And then we just happened to ask her, what does she do? And she's a Tamilian from Singapore who said that she runs the largest sex store in Austria. And there was no way I was going to photograph her in a garden then. We were going back to her store. And then came Indian Memory Project in 2009. I was designing books. I went to a publisher with an idea that I wanted to do a book on weddings from India. And with the weddings, we could trace cultures, ceremonies. It would have made a great coffee table book, and I wanted to use actual pictures from everybody's albums, because that's something that was an insight I had, that everybody has wedding pictures, and you could trace actually every culture, and you could write about every culture, ceremony, traditions, and things that are dying down, folk songs that nobody remembers except for NRIs. And it was an insight that I went to a publisher, and then she rejected the book, and because there was some internal problem, and I went back to earning my money, my rent, but there was a nagging idea that there was something there. Until Facebook happened, I'd asked for people to actually start posting pictures. And this is something that, I don't know if you've noticed, but people are not good at taking instructions. If you tell them to go right, they'll go left, and it's the truth. And when I asked people to post wedding pictures and tell me about the ceremony, they actually started posting pictures and would tell me about their life story, which was an interesting thing, because actually the penny dropped only after a year for me that there was something there that people were writing about. And everything became categories. It was partition, it was clothes, conversion of faith, props, hand-painted. The photographic technique became an interesting thing to study. This is one of the hand-painted photographs taken in 1923. And when the penny dropped is when I could realize that I could trace all of these things. You could trace anything as long as there was a picture, which became the central context, and a story around it that the story would mention all of these things that are listed, and if not these even more. So I immediately, when the penny dropped, did not waste time. 2 days later, there was a blog. I put everything up with permissions. I wrote people's stories. I could categorize it, keyword it, give it a time. Apartheid, South Africa. This is one of the stories that came. And what was interesting was I could trace, and that was it, that you could trace a whole history of a country or even a subcontinent, because there was a macro context to it. This is a photograph from a family, but it is about a global history. It is about apartheid. It is about discrimination, and it was about a lot of that was going on at that time. And that is a fantastic way for me to document any histories, or for any one of us to do that. This is just an example. I'm going to show you 3 photographs that belong to one category. And all 3 come, excuse me, can I have some water? Sorry. Behind you. Oh, sorry, got it. Oh, thank you. This was 3 pictures, and from one category that I've chosen. There are several of these on the Memory Project website, and these 3 pictures are from the one category called partition. This is an Anglo-Indian family, beautiful story. This is one of the stories that went viral. It had around 25,000 visits a day. And this is about a story about Jason Scott Tilley, who contributed the picture, actually found some hidden away pictures from his grandfather's collection. His grandfather was a photographer with Times of India in 1946 before they left to go back to London. And he carried with him all his archives. And these were hidden. And he realized that he'd photographed this one particular woman quite often, and it wasn't his grandmother. So he went and he researched her and discovered that actually this was his grandfather's first girlfriend in India. And they had to separate because of partition. And he came back to the UK. She left and she went to New Zealand. And he found Jason found that lady. She's still alive. She's 98 years old now, living in an old age home. He sent her pictures of his grandfather. And apparently she looked at the picture for the first time and she said, is he here? And that was something that was a fascinating thing what a photograph can do, is it can trigger off an image or a memory from somebody who's also 98 and has actually fading memory. This is another story from partition, but this is not from India. It's actually sent to me from Pakistan, which was a fantastic insight that actually it sort of proved what I had been thinking for a long time, and because of reading a lot, had known for a long time, that when we were being brought up, we kept, I mean, I don't know to most of you, but I was being brought up, I was being told all the time that Pakistan was bad, and that's it. There was no reason given why it is bad, what is bad, because of the communal things, and it was all just enough to tell you that this was nothing, that this was all painful for for all of us. And this is, again, Balwant Singh Goindi from Lahore. His shops got burnt down, they left, they came back. Through his life, he wanted to go back, and he couldn't, and that's a story of several people. And you could trace a lot of things, how people sit, how people stand. In the West, people sit. In the East, the women sit. In the West, women sit down. In Bengal, people stand. This is again left is Gujarat, right is Bengal, and it was incredible how the photographer becomes the confidant. This is a company that I've now founded. This is basically now works on projects that are based on history and photographs. And I use a lot of techniques to just create some kind of excitement using companies' histories, brand histories, about the Hindujas who are actually film distributors, started their career as film distributors. This is because of the export. This is Mysore sandal soap, because it's leftover sandalwood that started the business of the Mysore sandalwood soap. This is a Rapidex English speaking course. I don't know how many of you remember this, but my father taught himself English on this. And this is something I've just done recently, is again using technology to tie up the emotional mapping of a city. And it was just a fun idea that we did, was you had to pin the place where you fell in love. And it's a Google Maps, it's Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore. You can create your own. I just did these three to see what would happen. And it was a fantastic exercise because the whole city got involved, and it got a lot of views, and people wanted to do something with it as well. You literally own the city with something when you're marking your idea of love, which is actually the highest, the most happy feeling that we all have. And this is, of course, NSFW. This is a project that I'm going to be showcasing in Format Festival. Is a photography exhibition with stories actually from criminal investigations in India. And this is about actually an unsolved murder, 1868, the first forensic picture taken in India of a woman called Rose Brown. And that's it. Thank you so much.